Good morning on this Sunday, December 3rd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. The world said a final farewell to former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. Also, it's back to the drawing board and the state capitol for Georgia lawmakers who must redraw political districts. And a legal fight over real estate commissions comes to Georgia. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Janelle are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
This week, family and friends bid farewell to former First Lady Rosalynn Carter. Many of Mrs. Carter's friends and family shared touching stories and repeatedly talked about the incredible legacy she leaves behind. After 3 days of tributes and memorials, former First Lady Rosalynn Carter was laid to rest in Plains, the small Georgia town where she lived most of her life. Rosalynn Carter was memorialized Tuesday in Atlanta as a matriarch who felt most comfortable among the impoverished and vulnerable, as she was mourned by a rare gathering of all living U.S. First Ladies and multiple presidents, including her 99-year-old husband, Jimmy Carter.
My mother was the glue that held our family together through the ups and downs and thicks and thins of our family's politics.
Former President Carter, in hospice care, watched from his wheelchair, covered in a blanket adorned with his wife's face.
As Reverend Warnock told me, my grandmother doesn't need a eulogy. Her life was a sermon. And it was a mighty testament to the power of faith.
The speakers included family members and longtime friends who praised Rosalynn Carter for a half-century of advocacy for better mental health care in America and reducing stigmas attached to mental illness. She brought attention to the tens of millions of people who worked as unpaid caregivers in U.S. households. She was also praised for her role in her husband's political career.
My mother, Rosalynn Carter, was the most beautiful woman I've ever met, and pretty to look at, too.
Another touching moment was when Amy Carter read a love note her father wrote to her mother 75 years ago. And Melita, not a lot of dry eyes in the church when Amy Carter was reading that letter.
Absolutely. It was one of many moments which brought tears to the eyes of those who were in the audience. I think another moment was when Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood sang Imagine.
Yes.
Because the Carters had spent so much of their life working towards peace. And Jason Carter, of course, got wonderful laughs as he acknowledged the remarkable sisterhood of the First Ladies who were in the audience, and then said, Secretary Clinton and Dr. Biden, we also welcome your lovely husbands.
It was good. It was good.
It was a touching ceremony, and I think the part I love the most, because I'm famous for my pimento cheese, was when Jason Carter talked about Mrs. Carter whipping out a Tupperware container of pimento cheese and a loaf of bread and making sandwiches to pass out to grandchildren on a Delta jet as they were headed off to a grand adventure.
And then started handing them out to other folks on the plane as well. So, you know, Phil, as journalists, right, we've covered so many funerals for dignitaries and attended so many, but gosh, this was one of the most beautiful ceremonies I think I've ever seen.
You know, you're making a great point, and I was thinking the same thing, and I'm sure the panelists here would agree. And there's so many things that we could talk about. And of course, the legacy, as you pointed out in the opening, was great, especially being a pioneer in the mental health area when that wasn't a big popular policy issue. And Melita, you talked about Jason Carter, who sometimes a guest panelist here.
Yes.
My favorite one that got some laughs in the church was when they showed the kiss cam over at the Braves game, and they were caught kissing. And it was a beautiful traditional Christian service with a lot of Bible verses being read, and it was just, Lori, you're right, it was just well done.
And those Bible verses were read by great-grandchildren.
That's right.
It was touching. Theron, I mean, you couldn't not see the impact that Mrs. Carter has made really on the world. And I thought that they did such a great job of just capturing her legacy, and with all the different speakers and
everything, and capturing her legacy before, you know, Jimmy Carter became governor, president, and even after. But, you know, there was a quote that I read, I want to read it, and it's just, to me, epitomizes her life and legacy. She said, "Do what you can to show you care about other people, and you will make our world a better place." And the thing that, you know, really struck me is definitely when Amy read the letter.
Yes.
And I know we got winners and losers on this show, but to me, the winning moment in that service was the love affair between Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter. I mean, to be married 77 years is great. And then more importantly, after leaving the White House, coming back to Georgia and staying in your hometown and all the stuff that they did in the churches together, you know, volunteer for Habitat for Humanity, helping the communities, and then all the work that she did in other continents like Africa. We don't talk about that enough, that she was a world leader that really cared not only about this country, but how we were perceived in other countries and continents as well.
And elections, you know, observers, and, you know, the eradication of the guinea worm. I mean, so much. Janelle, what I always like to point out, you're among the younger generations. Yes. But what do you think the young people can learn and take away from the life of Mrs. Rosalind Carter?
That was actually a perfect question to open up my remarks, because I was going to say, highlighting their partnership. 77 years of partnership. It wasn't just a marriage, right? It was a team. And I think sometimes we are living in a society, particularly amongst the younger people, where it's all about self, you know, it's self-love, self-care, and it's all pointed this way. But the partnership is what matters. We don't have a lot of people celebrating marriage. In our newer generation, they are not as excited about operating in, like I said, in this partnership where each of you are kind of walking in your lanes. I love that she was able to support him. I mean, we know that there would be no Jimmy Carter and all of the achievements without Rosalind. So I am just so proud to see that, and I pray for the family. I know it'll be difficult, but they lived a long life, and that's what we all can ask for.
And Melita, I know that there's a lot of folks to thank for this beautiful ceremony.
Well, there are, and it showed Georgia off in a beautiful way. So you have to thank the Secret Service, not only for what they did this week, but for how they've kept the Carters in such good care all these years. The Georgia State Patrol and all the local law enforcement coordinating motorcades, the Jimmy Carter National Historical Park in Plains, the Carter Center here in Atlanta, Emory University, Glenn Memorial Church, Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, and then all the musicians, especially those from the Atlanta Symphony.
Right, that was good. Anybody else? Any final thoughts?
Well, one last thing. I thought it was very nice that Ms. Carter wanted all of the first ladies there as a sign of unity, and that's what America should be about.
Always still bringing people together.
Absolutely.
Right? All right, thanks everybody. Up next, Georgia lawmakers head back to the state capitol to redraw political boundaries. We'll discuss next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Georgia lawmakers opened a special session this week as majority Republicans move to minimize their losses while also trying to increase the number of black majority districts to comply with a federal court order. Phil, biggest takeaways so far?
Well, this is a partisan drawing. Of course, our legislature is controlled in both houses by the Republicans, and so they're still drawing as we tape the maps, and they'll be out next week, and they have to finish up their work on the 9th. The takeaway for me is that the state Senate, the numbers don't change. The Republicans will still be in control. The judge has ordered black majority districts. So what the Republicans did, and is perfectly legal and fine, is they picked white Democrat districts, and then they put black voters in there. And so those are the black majority districts. And then over on the House side, I did say last week that 100 was the big number. You have to watch 100 House members, GOP caucus. They're going to be fine too. If you look at the maps, I won't get into too much detail, but they're going to maintain sufficient control over that chamber, and they will follow the judge's instructions to have majority black districts.
Fair and Democrats are watching this process very closely.
Democrats are watching this process very closely, and a lot of them are showing a tremendous amount of discipline because, as Phil talked about, while this is a partisan process, the fact of the matter is that we're a state that has grown over 1 million people in the last 10 years, and we are a diverse state, and the majority of those 1 million plus people who've come to the state have been people of color. But the thing that saddens me, Lori, is that the Republicans had an opportunity 2 years ago to draw a map that basically did not violate the Voting Rights Act. And so what Judge Jones said is that you clearly violated the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and you illegally diluted black voting power. So what's happening now is that they're eliminating these influential districts, which we like to call coalition districts. These are districts that, no matter the representation, is very diverse. And we have white Democrats, we have white Republicans as well that compete in those coalition districts. And so one could come on the show and say, hey, you know what, we need more black districts, or we need more white districts that Republicans win in. But I'm saying that I think actually this dismantling of these coalition districts and the way that the House maps are sort of going about it, it could violate the Voting Rights Act. And then if we send them back, and if Judge Jones said, hey, this is not what I asked you to do, it clearly violates what, you know, we said that it violates, then we can look like the state of Alabama, which had to have a special master come in and draw their maps. And I just think that Georgia needs to be aware that that could happen.
Janelle, your thoughts on this process?
Yes, so I'm listening to everyone, and here's the thing, as a Republican, I don't think any Republican cares what you look like as long as you vote Republican. I think it's the same for Democrats. I think Democrats don't really care what you look like as long as you vote Democrat. Making this about race is a little odd to me, only because of the fact that the black voting base, or not, just not even talk about the voting base. Black people as a whole in Georgia make up about 30% of the population. We have there are 5 out of 14 black congressmen, which is about 35%. And then 69 blacks out of 296 in the legislature, which is about 30%. So the representation of black people is there. What we're really talking about is whether or not we have more Republican districts or more Democrat districts. And they're trying to create more of a balance so they can win more seats. And I think we just have to make it, I just want us to be more honest about what we're really talking about, because when we're having these conversations in communities, it makes people feel like there's something sinister happening when there's not anything sinister happening. It's just that you have Republicans who want to win and you have Democrats who want to win.
Melita.
Well, what you have is Republicans who want to win, who've stacked and packed their voters in a way which violates the Voting Rights Act. And the reason we talk about race is because the Voting Rights Act does that. What the Republicans are doing is they are rolling the dice and hoping that their maps fit within the 516-page order issued by Judge Jones. But a judge who takes the time to write such a detailed order will not, I think, be swayed by the shell game that particularly the Republican Senate map does, because he gave them specific instructions about which parts of the state the new maps needed to create black districts in, and they completely ignored it. So what that does is put the state in the position of possibly having a special master draw the maps, or the judge can say, because his order included examples from voting rights experts of maps that he would have found acceptable, he could say, revert to this map on page blankety blank of my order. Revert to this map on page. He doesn't have to order a special master. Those maps already exist within his order. And then the other thing is that they paired Democrats in such a way that women already representing majority black districts, the percentage of the district the two of them was put in was reduced from more than 60 or 58% down to 51.
Phil, did you want to respond?
Yeah, and I think that as we go back in our little history books here, the Democrats did their partisan gerrymandering and map making, and I didn't hear any problems from the Democrats then when they split up districts and all of that kind of stuff. You do have to keep a community of interest. Courts have ruled that is true. But I think the lawyers have said to the Republicans, these do pass muster. Yes, what Democrats don't like, and it actually happened in a Republican district, some of them had to run against each other who were incumbents. That's always uncomfortable in either party. But and of course, all of this can be appealed if Judge Jones doesn't like this. It can be appealed to a higher court. So that's the way it goes.
Well, to take our viewers inside the Capitol, like what I'm hearing, and as we are taping, they have not voted on any maps right now. I actually think they're debating the maps in the House and the Senate. But it's been a lot of procedural opportunities that have been not given to the Democrats to even sort of inject their opinions in this process. And so while, you know, we can talk about race, but I think we also need to let our viewers know that what's going on in the Capitol is that there are a lot of procedural things that have been eliminated. Then the last thing, Lord, to me, think about it. This is so much uncertainty for roughly about a dozen legislators. They don't know where they're running. They don't know who they're running against. But more importantly, our voters are confused. They don't know who they're going to vote for. They've had a representative that they probably like, he or she served them. But to Phil's point about the communities of interest, that's exactly what these maps are doing. You're breaking up communities of interest. People have moved to these areas because they want a better way of life. And now you're putting, more people in one district and then other people in this district to basically have, political outcomes that benefits the Republican Party. And I think that that's where Democrats have got to be louder about how this is just, partisanship going on, but also, more importantly, you're breaking up communities of interest.
But the judge is telling you, well, you got to put people in this community and you got to take some
coalition districts, though. We want to keep the coalition districts.
That's the key. That's the controversial part.
The most disruptive parts of these maps happened outside the areas the judges told them to concentrate on.
All right, I want to move on to another issue also happening at the Capitol. During the session, there was a unanimous vote by the Georgia Senate to condemn the deadly Hamas attacks against Israel. The resolution also denounces the anti-Semitic incidents targeting Jewish people. Melita, House Speaker John Burns says his chamber is also working on a similar resolution.
Yes, I believe they are, and what this does is the Republicans have certain language that they prefer. The Democrats have a language that's more inclusive of the destruction on both sides of the conflict that they prefer. And so the Republicans are pushing through their preferred language as a way to draw a wedge in between factions of the Democratic Party.
Janelle, are we going to see a compromise on this?
I hope so. I think this is where we have to start, right? This past Thursday, I was able to watch a screening of the actual footage from October 7th. It was from Hamas body cameras, social media, house cameras, all that. Actual footage, unedited. I saw children watching their parents die. I saw beheadings, executions. If you're not one of those people who want to say, I stand with Israel, stand against terrorism. That's where we all should be able to unite, that this is about standing against terrorism. And unfortunately, there are casualties of war when war takes place, and I understand that. But making this about civilians who in many cases have been radicalized, because that's another level to this war that we have to talk about, it's just bizarre to me. We've got to make sure that we all just stand in one place, and that's against terrorism.
Theron, you witnessed those videos as well.
Yeah, I haven't been on the show, and Janelle, I saw that same video, and Phil, I met a couple of your friends there as well, and what Janelle just described was the most horrific thing I ever seen in my life. And I stand with Israel. I stand with my brothers and sisters in the Jewish community. Even before seeing that video, I was still pro-Israel and talking to all my friends. But I think, to Janelle's point, there is a debate going on within the Democratic Party about Palestinian, support and actually Israel support. But I think, to Janelle's point, we can all be against terrorism. We can all be about coming together to fight what's going on in Gaza and with Hamas. And so it was very horrific. And I think more people need to be very vocal about their support.
Yeah.
Real quick, Phil.
Well, I appreciate what you both have said, and I don't see why Democrats would have a problem just simply condemning what happened on October 7th. And it was shameful to have some of them walk out or be absent. There's a terrific split in the state Democratic Party. We can talk about that at another time. But I think a lot of Jewish Democrats are very upset with their own party.
All right, we're going to move on. Coming up, the fight over real estate commissions comes to Georgia. We'll discuss next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
A new lawsuit filed in Georgia is challenging the way real estate commissions are paid. A similar suit was filed in Minnesota, where a federal jury ordered the National Association of Realtors, along with several large brokers, to pay nearly $2 billion in damages, finding them liable for artificially boosting commissions paid to agents. Phil, this could really shake up the entire real estate industry here.
Well, that's right. My phone blew up when this appeared in Georgia, where you had plaintiffs suing, and I did see a statement from Keller Williams, a realtor here, that they've been following these policies on commissions for decades, and that they feel they're within the legal guidelines. This is going to be a mess, bottom line, and whatever happens, it'll be appealed.
Theron.
Well, I talked to a couple realtors, friends of mine, and believe it or not, there's like two ways of looking at this. So there are people who say, look, you hire a realtor because it's a professional person, man or woman, who actually sets the fees, and they have to get paid. And then what's the debate is whether or not how you divvy up the commission. Most realtors get 3% commission if you're representing the seller, the other 3% if you represent the buyer. But what's interesting about this lawsuit is that it's about transparency. Do people know what they're signing in the documents, right? So when you present documentation saying that we're going to pay around with a commission fee a little bit, or we're going to, give this seller commission a little bit more, and this, this buyer's a little bit more, I think it's about transparency. But then the other thing about the lawsuit is that apparently these lawsuits have been pending for a while. So a lot of realtors didn't think it was going to actually make it this far. So you see the Georgia Realtors Association, different groups coming out against it. But I think that it's a kind of a mixed bag with realtors. But I think that, look, you got to know what you're going into before you get to the point where you hire a realtor. That person should be very upfront with you about their fee. But if you start changing it at the table or afterwards, that's where I think it gets a little tricky.
It's up for negotiation. Well, there's more pain at the pumps this week for Georgia drivers. After several months of relief, thanks to Governor Brian Kemp's emergency orders that suspended the state's gas tax, well, it's back. And it's a lot. 31 cents a gallon for unleaded and 35 cents per gallon for diesel. Melita.
Well, definitely the state coffers will not necessarily miss this money, because the state has something like more than a $16 billion surplus right now. But it will hurt people, everyday people. But I also think that if some of that surplus were spent fixing potholes and road problems that don't throw your alignment out or bust your tires, there are a lot of consumers who would be grateful for those improvements as opposed to the gas tax, because a set of tires is a lot more than a tank of gas here and there.
She speaks the truth.
She does. No, she does, and I agree. I think that, but I am happy that he did this, right? I mean, obviously we knew it would come to an end. It would have to, in order to keep the budget balanced.
All right.
Well, it'll restart, though. That's, we hope.
Yeah.
Because of the Biden, let's say, this is all because of Joe Biden, with all these high gas prices.
No gas.
Wait, let Theron go.
No, go ahead, Melita. Go ahead.
Georgia's price for gas is the 4th lowest in the nation.
Thank you.
It's still high. It's still high.
And let's not forget our 2 U.S. senators, particularly Senator Warnock, who played a part in also reducing the gas tax in Georgia, too, from the federal government. We leave that part out, but it's true. It's fact. Big fact, Big fact.
All right, shall we move on? Well, it was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis versus California Governor Gavin Newsom at a debate in Alpharetta this week. Anybody watch?
I watched it. Yeah. I did.
I loved it. I wish we could see more of this.
Gavin Newsom, to me, needs to be deployed by the Biden campaign all over the country, particularly in these battleground states, because his ability to be on the offense about the Biden record and not letting DeSantis sort of, play around with it and give fake news was awesome. And I like his ability to talk about what the Democratic Party has been doing, and he looked good, he sounded good. I think we got a future candidate.
Gavin Newsom is the kingpin of spin, okay?
What?
He was out there spinning all the facts, and I mean, but I will say, I was looking at him like, wow, I didn't know that you could lie in a way where it's almost convincing, but here's what I thought was cool about this. You had a far east state, a far west, similar climate. It was very much so a good parallel. I felt like Governor DeSantis, he shines whenever it's just him, right? He really shines then. I did like some of his petty, remarks about the father-in-law moving to Florida. I thought that was great.
Gavin Newsom's father-in-law left California.
I know. So yeah, I thought it was really good, entertaining.
Real quick, I got to move on.
I just thought that Newsom wiped the floor.
Oh, please.
Of course she did.
Please.
All right, we'll leave it there because we got winners and losers next.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Janelle, we'll start with you.
I'm going to start with my loser. My loser is Representative Santos, or I should say just George Santos, since he's been expelled. I think I just don't like people who lie. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. The lying has to stop, and the stealing of donations to pay for Botox is too much. My winner is Governor DeSantis. I think he did a great job debating Governor Newsom. And then happy birthday to my mother-in-law. She watches the show. Aww. She's 65. And so Mama Janet, happy birthday to you. Love you very much.
Melita.
Well, I have a birthday greeting too. I want to use a point of personal privilege to wish my daughter, Christina Shields, a happy 40th birthday.
Aww, happy
She's
birthday.
a Naval Academy honors graduate who served 2 tours of duty in the Marine Corps in Afghanistan. She's now a mother, a wife, a nurse, and she has 2 practically perfect daughters, and I'm really proud of her and wish her many happy years.
That's great. Congratulations and happy birthday. Phil.
Well, I'm going to make 11th Appeals Court Judge Lisa Branch the winner. She wrote the opinion just the other day saying that our Public Service Commission districts don't dilute minority voting, and statewide elections are perfectly fine. So I thought that was a great ruling that should be listened to by the remapping. And also 2 quick winners, Lauren Curry, who's the first female chief of staff of a Georgia governor. Congratulations to her, and Brad Bohannon, who's now the deputy chief of staff to Governor Kemp.
Yeah, some movement there.
Right, and I'll follow suit. I'll also congratulate Trey Kilpatrick, who actually is leaving chief of staff as Governor Kemp and going over to Georgia Power to run external affairs. Also, we lost retired Justice Sandra Day O'Connor this week. She was the first woman in the Supreme Court. And also want to give a shout out to the city of Brookhaven. Full disclosure, I work with them, but all the council members and mayor pushed back on comments that were made, the anti-Semitic comments, hate comments that were made in the council meeting. Everyone pushed back against that. And then lastly, I can't believe we didn't say this, guys. Go Dogs!
Yeah.
I mean, like, come on. Yeah. So as we're taping, they'll be there Sunday, but I think the Dogs are going to definitely beat Bama and on to the national championship.
Let's hope so. And hey, how about a shout out to Ryan Cameron, who is now the new voice of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. What an honor. I can't wait to hear him. So thanks, everybody. We will see you again next week. Bye-bye.